did you want to make this documentary?
I'm not going to say that it's comfortable.
Yeah, that is not an answer. The question was, why did you make this documentary? She's it's not comfortable, is it? No one asked about the comfort of it. And this is a tactic that narcissists use a lot. It's called like word salad, where they say a bunch of things that sound intelligent and logical on their own, but when put together, they don't seem relevant to the situation, but they kind of confuse you. And she's a master at that. As for Harry,
I can't think what my mum went through all those years ago by herself. And that's why everything that's happened to us was always going to happen to us.
and this right there is emblematic of Harry's main issue, which is that he's stuck in this idea that he couldn't save the most important woman in his life. And that most important woman in his life is being hounded by the press.
Paparazzi still harass people. The hunter versus the prey.
And Meghan, being the narcissist that she is, exploits that like nobody's business, because she knows the hardest thing for him to see is to see her cry. Basically, in other words, to see his mother cry, to see sadness on the face of the most important woman in his life.
As sad as it is, in order for change to happen, sometimes a lot of pain has to come to the surface.
These two truly bring out the worst in each other, and we're gonna get into all of that as this video goes on. But even though they bring out the worst in each other, they continue to say things like,
H and I are really, really good at finding each other in the chaos.
"You are the chaos, honey. You are the chaos." Like, they're addicted to this, "Oh my God, we're saving each other." No, you're not saving each other. You're really making each other worse. And this delusion and confusion that is this documentary is like literally in every minute of this whole thing. It's basically 6 hours of expensively lit, very well produced nothing. It's nothing. It's like a fluff piece. It's a PR campaign. It's like those. To call it a documentary is really a stretch. Also, there's no clear accusation. Harry's going on throughout the whole series saying, "Oh, I have to protect her. I have to protect her." But and against whom? They keep saying they. Who's they? Is it the royal palace? Is it the press? Is it Brexit? Because sometimes they mention Brexit. Also, the whole thing is a weird juxtaposition of victimhood. Like they're just whining, and then there's this weird love story. These Instagram pictures, like, huh? What film is this? What are we watching? And yet, I was watching, because, you know what? I'm part of the problem, as we all are. Even though it's a very boring series, like really, I love pop culture. I watch Kardashians, not ironically, I watch them for fun. But I found this hard to sit through, because it's really, first of all, they have no charisma. So thank God they're connected to Princess Diana, because if it wasn't for her, she's all over the documentary. Like yeah. Anyway, I was watching because I'm addicted to watching whatever is in the zeitgeist. Speaking of addiction, my favorite addiction specialist, Gabor says it best when he describes why we do things like this.
Buddhists have this idea of the hungry ghosts. The hungry ghosts are creatures with large empty bellies and small scrawny necks and tiny little mouths, so they can never get enough. They can never fill this emptiness on the inside. And we all hungry ghosts in this society. We all have this emptiness.
Hi guys, I'm Indie Nile, your favorite drag therapist, the only drag therapist. Basically, I'm not a therapist, but what I do is analyze pop culture, because I can talk about psychology till I'm blue in the face. And I love pop culture and I love drag. And basically, drag for me is about taking life a little bit less seriously so that, you know, you're not going crazy. So put them all in a blender and you get in denial. So as I say, I'm in denial so you can wake up. Basically, this documentary is full of just bumper sticker psychology and conflating issues that have nothing to do with anything. Like my favorite part is when there's this expert, this talking head that they hired, talking about that there are, you know, powers that be and forces at play that are, you know, trying to annihilate justice, and somehow that's related to why Meghan and Harry want to leave the royal palace. I have no idea. Just
let's be clear about what's actually at stake here. It's like symbolic annihilation. If you can destroy people who are symbols of social justice.
Symbolic annihilation. Let's be clear. This is what they're... Who's they? Who's they? Is it the royal palace again? Is it the press? Who's doing this? Yes, of course, there is injustice in the world, but how is that related? They're just riding the coattails of, first of all, Diana, and then they talk about Brexit, then they talk about the Grenfell Tower, the fire, and then they talk about the murder of Stephen Lawrence, this black teenager in London who was killed in a racial crime. There's this one part where this protester from one of the countries in the Commonwealth
sending a shout out that reparation time come now.
There is a tipping point, a generational change, and a moment in which events are sort of coalescing.
What does that have to do with anything, bitch?
They're just cramming things in. There's nothing. There is no documentary. And the first 3 episodes in their entirety are dedicated to talking about the stakes, when the stakes are so high.
When the stakes are this high, doesn't it make more sense to hear our story from us?
The only time is when she talks about one of the stakes is that she couldn't wear color. She had to like mute herself down.
Most of the time that I was in the UK, I rarely wore color.
And for me, the worst thing is that there's no acknowledgement of their part in all this. Like, at least say something like, you know, some self-reflection. Like, I could have done this differently. We could have maybe done this here a bit differently. But they were against us. But nothing. It's just they're victims, 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 victims. It's just, oh my God. But the person I'm most disappointed in all this is Liz Garbus, the filmmaker who made this documentary. There was an article where she was asked about like why she chose to do this film is because she got a hold of all the footage which Meghan has been filming for 2 years.
I just really want to get to the other side of all of this.
And she found that shot. She literally said the shot of her in the bathroom is raw. This is raw. The woman who made this.
From what I remember, I stabbed her once, but from the autopsy reports, I stabbed her 3 times.
Thinks this is raw?
I don't know what to say anymore.
Call it what it is, a nice paycheck. I mean, if Meghan and Harry came to me and said, make a documentary about it, I'm like, yes, let's go. Yes, ma'am, let's do it. But just don't say this is a raw film. And she also called it a collaboration, like as if they were taking her input. Like there was this one point where the producer or somebody from behind the camera brings up a laptop.
I just want to start with this little moment. I don't think you guys have seen this before, and I just thought I would share it with you.
Like she's never seen this. Girl, you're controlling this film. And the biggest proof of that is that they fired the first director who was attached to the project called Garrett Bradley because his approach was very verite. You know what verite means? That means truth. And when he was asked, he refused to comment. So Liz Garbus, yeah, enjoy your paycheck, honey. Buy that house, do whatever you want, but just don't call this a film. But perhaps the most phony thing about this film is Meghan, but we'll get to her in a minute. Let's first start with Harry. Prince Harry, man of the hour. What I think Harry has is arrested psychological development, arrested emotional development, which is a fancy way of saying he's stuck at an early age. I mean, to have your mother die in that way and have to put on a front, for me, the most heartbreaking stuff is the part where they talk about the funeral.
When my mum died, we had 2 hats to wear. One was 2 grieving sons, and 2 was the royal hat, show no emotion, get out there, meet the people, shake the hands.
And there's also a nice clip, not from this documentary.
I was there, he rushed down the corridor and flung himself into my arms, and he wet my shirt with his tears.
Like, can you imagine having to be so, the conditioning to be so deeply ingrained in you that you have to act and perform when you just want to grieve for your mother? And some people I think are just better at pretending, and not to say that they're fake, but they're just better at like putting up a mask. And if you compare the journey of Prince William and Prince Harry after their mother died, like William always kept it together while Harry was just falling apart and doing all the drinking, and which is, both are very valid responses. But I think this is at the root of why they had conflict throughout the years, which now is at an all-time high.
It was terrifying to have my brother scream and shout at me.
For me, that's like the biggest example of how Prince Harry is stuck, is like emotionally stunted. It's like the way he describes how his brother was talking to him. His brother was screaming. Reminds me of Britney's testimony when she was like, they were mean to me. It's like, because I think fame, someone said this, that fame actually is some kind of a trauma that makes you stuck at the age where you become famous. And I think Prince Harry, was shoved into the public consciousness at 12 years old. And something very interesting is Prince William is more like his father, Charles, and Harry is like his mother, Diana.
I could see that Harry is very much his mother.
And I actually wonder if that's why Harry is stuck at that age, like stuck fighting for his mother, because he just needs to save her. He needs to continue that mission that was clearly cut short. And Gabor Mate again would like to say a couple of things about that.
So I know what that escape from the self is like. And my definition of addiction is any behavior that gives you temporary relief, but in the long term causes harm, and you can't give it up despite those negative consequences. And that's what the real question in addiction is, not why the addiction, but why the pain.
Diana's boy. There was an expectation to have a public wedding. It was like mission complete with William. Now, let's see if this goes the distance with Harry.
For me, the most heartbreaking and the sweetest moment that came from Harry in the documentary is somewhere towards the end, where after they moved to LA and Harry says that, oh my God, this is where my mom wanted to be. It's like, ah.
It's one of the places where I think my mum is probably going to end up living, potentially.
Can you imagine how much pain he must be carrying from that, for that to be the thing that excites him the most? And speaking of pain, someone else wants to come in and say a couple of words about that. This is a woman, her name is Shefali Tsabary. I've lip-synced to her before. She's a therapist, and her focus is conscious parenting and raising, awakened families. And she has a couple of things to say.
Pain, the pain of suffering, it's too much to bear. It's almost as if our psychological anatomies simply are not designed to contain the pain that life hurtles at us. Pain leaves a stain. Pain must be painted over, for it cracks our sense of self almost, leaving it in a million shards, not shards that you can just leave on the roadside, if only we were so lucky. No, but the shards, they prick our footsteps every walking minute, bleeding, reminding us that we are broken, broken, broken. Life wasn't supposed to be this way. This is what they told us as children, that life was this fairy tale.
And that's exactly where Prince Harry is stuck, in a fairy tale, playing the role of the savior. He basically wants to save someone so he can feel saved. And that's where Meghan comes in.
I had a career, I had my life, and then came age. I mean, he literally, talk about a plot twist.
Meghan and I met over Instagram.
So that's the thing, when people say, did you Google him? No. But that's your homework. You're like, look, let me see what they're about in their feed. So I went through and it was just like beautiful photography and all these environmental shots.
And that whole story they concocted about how they met is just a load of crap, because she knew exactly what she was doing. She wanted to meet a rich, eligible English bachelor. And that's known from Lizzie Cundy, the TV personality whom Meghan met when she first arrived in London for kind of promoting the show Suits that she was on. And basically she just told this woman, Lizzie, that I want to meet a rich English man, so set me up with somebody. And she was actually trying to connect her to people.
You knew her going back a bit, didn't you?
I knew her when she was in a show called Suits.
Yeah.
And she wanted to find an English boyfriend. So I said, look, I'll help you. So I was going through my phone.
And she presented herself online. She curated a personality online to make herself look like Princess Diana. And by the way, there are rumors actually that she was wearing the same perfume as Princess Diana to really cast that spell. So let's talk about Meghan. The reason why you're all here, because as Gabor says, we're all hungry ghosts and we're hungry for things that are negative. I believe Meghan is a narcissist, like a hardcore narcissist. And there are a few symptoms that when they appear in a cluster, you can say, okay, this person is a narcissist. And I'm basing this on, I don't know if you know Dr. Ramani. She has a YouTube channel here. She's, I think, the world leading expert on narcissism. Check out her YouTube channel. But basically, the main symptoms that we're going to go through in this video with examples from the documentary are validation seeking and grandiosity, inability to hear criticism and become extremely frustrated when people criticize you, using others for narcissistic supply, including Prince Harry, her son Archie, and also employing people as flying monkeys. I don't know if you heard the term. Flying monkeys are people that the narcissists use to help brainwash other people. They're like little minions and people that basically help you perpetuate the story that you want to tell about yourself. And of course, being extremely superficial and fake, of which I have plenty of examples. And perhaps my favorite symptom is talking in word salad. Word salad is when narcissists like just conflate a lot of issues, and by the end of it, you're like, okay, maybe what they said does make sense. Because it sounds good, even though it's not related. They just confuse you so that they kind of like redirect to another subject. And there are many types of narcissists, which Dr. Ramani talks about. Like there's the grandiose narcissist, the malignant narcissist. But my two, the one I keep going, maybe I think Meghan has both. The covert narcissist, which has basically a victim complex, and the communal narcissist. And the communal narcissist is basically someone who's very obsessed with their image in the community and is a humanitarian and who rescues and always looks amazing while rescuing, by the way. Because in her core, she's actually very cunning and calculating. She's like that character Olivia Pope, who just happens to be her favorite character.
Fiercest female character on TV.
Who do I say? Olivia Pope?
Olivia Pope.
But on the outside, she presents as this victim. And for me, the most telling example of that is when she's talking about her miscarriage.
I was pregnant. I really wasn't sleeping. The first morning that we woke up in our new home is when I miscarried.
Of course, miscarriage is a painful, harrowing experience for anyone who goes through it. And I'm sure she suffered when she went through it. So I'm not going to say she enjoyed having had a miscarriage. But what I am saying, just look at her expression when she says she miscarried.
When I miscarried.
That little smirk, the way she's just staring down the camera. And again, I have to repeat because it bears repeating. It's not that she enjoys having had a miscarriage, but having to tell it and present herself as the victim, woo, is firing her up. And sidebar, when her friend, well, not sidebar, it's actually very related. When her friend, one of the flying monkeys, introduces this section about the miscarriage, starts telling us the story about how painful it was for Meghan. Looking away basically to cover the fact that there are no tears. And there's another part where she's talking about, oh, they made a tab about me at the Daily Mail or whatever press it was.
Create an entire tab on our homepage with her name.
She's complaining, but she's actually smiling. The body language and the behavior is not congruent with the words that are coming out of her mouth. Like she says she hates this, but she loves every second of it. Also, a bit random, but when she keeps talking about how much she sacrificed, like what did you sacrifice? The show Suits? Like, I don't get it. What is it that you've sacrificed?
When the stakes were this high.
When the stakes are this high. What are the stakes? What are the stakes? I mean, maybe you're having a steak for dinner, but there are no stakes in this meal. Okay, now let's go through the symptoms with very specific examples. The validation seeking and the grandiosity. Like, there is no better place in the film than when she accidentally receives a text from Beyonce while the camera crews there. Oh, Beyonce just wrote. Oh my God, what a coinkydink.
Beyonce just texted. Really meant. She admires and respects my bravery and vulnerability, and she thinks I was selected to break generational curses that need to be healed.
It's so pretentious and sanctimonious. And she's like, oh, yeah, I did that. I broke down those barriers.
She admires and respects my bravery and vulnerability.
And another part where she talks after the Megxit when they left, when she was on the plane, and some guy on the plane, oh, it's not the pilot, it's the guy who, she's just, confusing the story. So probably we can't find that person. But basically this imaginary person on the plane came down and took off his hat. Like she's telling you a story that she probably read as a child.
And I just remember looking at him, he goes, we appreciate everything you did for our country. I just collapsed in his arms crying. I was like, I tried so hard. He goes, I know you did, ma'am.
So hard, she cried. Wow. The other symptom, superficiality and fakeness. I'm just gonna run a little montage of her fakest moments.
And then we had the reception at St. George's Hall.
We cut cake. With a sword.
With a sword.
Sword. Oh my God, it's a sword, you guys, sword.
Well, Oprah came over for tea, didn't she?
She did.
She did, yeah. Oprah, yes. Oprah, my friend. And there's that one part where she wanted to cry so badly, but no tears would come.
So close with my grandmother, and I took care of her in her final years. Yeah, it was such a good day. We laughed.
Basically, when she's talking like she's giving a speech at the UN, or she's so animated. You know how like when you talk to a kid, you animate your story, like, now I'm surprised, now I'm sad, now I'm happy. Like, this is how she's like, ooh, ah, yes. Then I cried, and then I was so sad. Like, girl, what are you doing? But the only moment that was authentic is when she was making fun basically of the curtsy. She was so giddy, like she was like you can see like she was a 10-year-old girl.
How do you explain that you bow to your grandmother?
Pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty.
Did you see how uncomfortable Harry looked in that part? He's like, you're embarrassing both of us. But the part where I wanted to throw up my insides is when she talked about back to how they met. When the lady asked her, like, did you know Harry? She's like, no, I didn't know him. I didn't know he was a prince, but I didn't care. I said, is he kind?
I didn't know much about him, and so the only thing that I had asked her when she said she wanted to set us up was, I had one question. I said, well, is he nice? Because if he wasn't kind...
Girl, okay, we all want someone kind to marry us, but if a prince proposes to you, you're gonna be a bit excited. Like, make it seem real. Like, pepper the lie with some truth so we can believe you. Like, no, she didn't care. She didn't care that he was a prince. She never Googled him. She just, is he kind?
Kind.
Girl, I'm trying my hardest to be objective, but I hate this one. There was a part where, when in the documentary, where this woman, I think producer, someone from behind the camera, shows them that clip.
Prince William or Prince Harry? I don't know. Harry. Harry? Sure.
It just again shows how little you knew.
He wants so badly to believe that she loves him for him, but girl, she did not pick you because she liked your Instagram feed with the elephants. No, honey, she doesn't care about elephants. Wake up. And I think Shefali would like to say a couple of words to Prince Harry.
There is no kiss from another that will save you from your own dark, deep shadow.
And perhaps the most dangerous symptom of narcissism is how they use people for narcissistic supply. For example, the way she uses Archie, her son, for narcissistic supply. It even started before he was born. I'm gonna play a little montage here of how she was constantly like just flicking the jacket just to kind of impose for the camera. And after he was born, one of the things that she mentions in the documentary is she wanted to raise her kids away from the frenzy.
They knew that they didn't want to bring Archie up in this frenzy that they lived in.
But then you serve them up for this Netflix documentary, like... And there was a video of her on his first birthday. And usually the way the customs are done, like when the royal family presents their baby to the public, it's usually just kind of a photo op with the kids. Meghan did a video where, of course, she is the center, and she's reading a book to Archie, a book that Oprah sent to her. Which, by the way, was already a year before that interview with Oprah. So she's already kind of like plotting and networking and figuring out all these things. But yeah, she was just reading to him from a book from Oprah, which is for a 3-year-old. He's clearly not interested.
Let's turn the page. Let's show everybody. It's a rabbit, and he's about to eat a carrot. Those are his ears, silly. You scared him away. Archie, look, you didn't scare him away. I didn't scare him away. You scared him away. Let's finish this book first, then we'll have that book.
I'm reading a story to my child, and I'm just looking so cute and casual in shorts while doing it. Also, another example of how she uses people and her flying monkeys, basically, to do her bidding is that part where her friends organized a cover story with People magazine, like as just a little pick-me-up for Meghan while she's depressed. Like, that's just something that people do.
I called one of my closest friends, who just so happened at the time to be the editor of People magazine. I said, we have to turn this narrative around.
My friend who just happened to be the editor of People, like all these contacts that she's building are like, what a coincidence that they're all serving some kind of a purpose for her. And by the way, speaking of her friends, how come none of her friends are black? She's going on about race and like she's a black woman and she's been put upon by the system, but the only black people that you know are Oprah, Tyler Perry, and Serena Williams. These people who are like gazillionaires and transcended race, and you're not even their friend. Like these are just media relations. Speaking of her fake friends.
Thanks to another amazing friend who we've never met, but who believes in us and wants to help.
This Tyler Perry who just wanted to do this out of the goodness of his heart.
How you first got in touch with Meghan.
I saw something about her father.
Posing for the paparazzi.
I found it to be hurtful if he were my father.
He would just do it for anyone who's been, hurt. Any woman who's been hurt and abandoned by her father. Not because Prince Harry and Meghan are famous and that he's going to get publicity out of it. Like the time when he went on Gayle King and how somehow Gayle King happened to figure out that they're staying at his house. He's like, oh, I'm losing you. I'm not going to talk. Like he told her before the interview.
It's been widely reported that Meghan and Harry are living at your place in Los Angeles. Can you tell us how they're doing?
I'm sorry. I think I just lost you. Gail. I'm sorry.
But nowhere is this usage of people for narcissistic supply as terrifying and as masterful as with Harry. Ooh, one of the things is not really from the documentary, it's from the interview with Oprah that Meghan and Harry did. Towards the end, when Oprah asks, when she asks Prince Harry, did she save you?
Do you think in some way she saved you?
Yeah, she did. Without question, she saved me.
I think that's lovely. I would disagree. I think he saved all of us. Right? He ultimately called it.
What Meghan does is so masterful. Like from a human point of view, it is fucked up. But from a narcissistic acting point of view, chef's kiss. This is how you covertly narcissize the shit out of someone.
And you made a decision that certainly saved my life.
Basically what she says is that this is all his doing. So that if later down the line, because I think she's plotting something for later. And I predict, by the way, she's going to leave Harry once she's done. When there are no more books or shows or podcasts and when he's of no use, she's going to dump him. I give it 5 years, if that.
He ultimately called it.
If it wasn't for him, he saved me. And she's going to come up with a story years down the line where, but this was all his idea. She was just trying to help this motherless boy. But seriously, the way she did it here, this is how covert narcissists work. It's so masterful and so covert and genius. And there was a moment when they were on tour in South Africa where it slipped, where she almost forgot that he's next to her. She's like, me and my husband.
While I'm here with my husband.
She's already imagining a future where she's alone doing this, performing this role of the humanitarian girl. And she's so good at playing naive. There was a part where after the birth of Archie and this interview that became very widely circulated and reported on, when she said, when she told the reporter, thank you for asking me how I'm doing, because nobody ever asked me how I'm doing.
Yeah, well, I guess, and also thank you for asking, because not many people have asked if I'm okay.
And the answer is, would it be fair to say not really okay? It's really been a struggle.
Yes.
And then later, when it blew up, she was like, I never knew they were going to use this.
I guess I just never thought they'd even use it in the documentary. I remember just saying okay, bye, we'll see you on our flight.
Really, girl? You? Who are cashing checks from the biggest media entities in the world, like Netflix and Spotify, and you don't understand how media works? Another example of her playing naive. When that letter that she sent to her dad suddenly was all over the press, she was shocked. So, let me get this straight. So, your issue with your dad, the reason he broke your heart into a million little pieces is because he sold you out to the press. Which, by the way, he didn't. He just took money for posing with this thing, like things to do in Britain as he prepares to go to the wedding. Okay, it's cheap. It's not the classiest thing, but he didn't expose you. But anyway, this man whom you don't trust, you decide to send him a handwritten letter and then act surprised when it's leaked to the press? And another example of how she uses Harry for narcissistic supply. In that Oprah interview, when Oprah asks Harry about his relationship with his brother, in that line of questioning, Oprah says, "So do you have any regrets?"
Any regrets?
No, I think I'm really proud of us. You know, I'm so proud of my wife. Like,
instead of answering whether he regrets ruining his relationship with his brother or not, he just turns it around into how proud he is of Meghan, which I don't even know how that's related, but anyway. And then Meghan turns to Oprah. Do you see that?
she safely delivered Archie during a period of time which was so cruel and so mean.
He's proud of me. This woman is... I do not like this woman. But the question is, why is Harry with her? Again, it goes back to this wound that was left after his mother died. And Gabor Mate also has something he'd like to tell Harry about his relationship with his own mother.
What happened to me is that I was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1944 to Jewish parents. Now why? What do babies know about Hitler or genocide or war? Nothing. What we're picking up on is the stresses and the terrors and the depression of our mothers. What happens then is I get the message that the world doesn't want me. Because if my mother's not happy around me, she must not want me. Why do I become a workaholic later? Because if they don't want me, at least they're going to need me. Now I'll be an important doctor, and they're going to need me. And that way I can make up for the feeling of not being wanted in the first place. And what does that mean?
That means Harry spends his time traveling the world, rescuing, doing all the philanthropy, just so that he can stop and not think about how he feels, so he can escape his pain. And interestingly enough, Diana did that as well. The loneliness that comes from fame is because you're interacting with people based on your public persona, not your authentic self. So that can make you very lonely. And Prince Harry and Diana, fame was thrust upon them. Like they were, and then they just did the best with it and kind of course, did their mistakes. But Meghan chose this since she was a child.
Hollywood Schoolhouse. I was there from ages 2 to 12.
I want you to see what you wrote to me. You can go ahead and read that, but I want you to pay attention to the P.S.
P.S. When I am rich and famous, when I write my life story, I will talk about you and the school so you will be known worldwide.
And another symptom that my favorite one is the word salad. I just love that. I just love that phrase, the word salad.
Tell us about the thinking about sitting with Oprah.
The more distance that came between us having a smaller role with the institution coming over here, the more of a vacuum was being built.
And again, another word salady answer.
And people just genuinely didn't understand why we left.
We felt enough time had passed that people forgot why we left. So, are you running away from the press, or are you inviting the press? Or are you trying to make people forget, or do you want... So you do want to remind people. Again, there's nothing authentic. And for me, like the biggest part where it shows how fake this whole thing is when they film them meditating. First of all, meditation, it's an experience about being with yourself and with your body. So already to have like a camera crew around is already like... And she's so hyper aware of the camera.
Your work is not to prove your goodness. You know who you are, both of you.
If you're meditating and your eyes are closed, how did you know the second the camera was filming your knees to just put your hand on his knee? But Meghan and Harry are not the only ones who are unable to sit with themselves and meditate in silence, because sitting with ourselves and with our feelings is something that terrifies all of us, because it's very confronting. And Shefali Tsabary would like to say a couple of words about that.
Because it is we who are so scared to confront our emptiness. Because in our naivety, we believe emptiness means nothingness. If only we realize that it is when we surrender to that emptiness, it is essentially fullness and oneness. But that emptiness is so terrifying to touch that we will avoid it at all costs. So we will inject fullness in our lives in any other way possible. Anything to give an appearance of fullness. It doesn't matter if the end result is a bland rendition of what was, an overproduced, tightly controlled micromanagement. as long as it denies what lies underneath.
Back to the symptoms of narcissism. Another big one is the inability to deal with criticism. You become so frustrated when things don't go your way. And the biggest example of that.
And then we had a walkabout in Liverpool, and there was a group of women, and one of them said to me, "What you're doing to your father's not right." And then my entire center was rocked to its core.
Basically, when a stranger told her that she doesn't like her relationship with her father, that shook her to her core. And apparently, that devastated her so much that it led to suicidal thoughts. And for me, like, I mean, I'm no stranger to mental health issues. And I come from a family with a lot of mental health issues. So I'm not making fun. But
You're a walking lie and I can see right through you.
My entire center was rocked to its core.
first of all, if that is not true, why would something a stranger say shake you to your core that much?
Because I believe in the shadow of your love for life lies a conditionality. That if life makes us feel beautiful and valued, wonderful and strong, then we will love life. Then we will be able to go outside and look at the sun and admire the sky. But when life breaks its contract with us, the contract that only we set up with it, and instead reflects back to us our weakness, our limitations, our fragility, it's almost then as if we withdraw, recoil, and divorce life itself.
Like the part in the documentary where they talk about their future plans. He says, we want to move on.
You know, my wife and I we're moving on. We're focused on what's coming next.
Okay, that would be lovely, but I don't think you're moving on because you're bringing out a book in January, in a couple of weeks, where I'm sure you're gonna rehash the story. Because, let's be real, they didn't give you 35 million advance to write a book about your experiences with the elephants in Africa, honey. They want the juice, like we all want the juice. And the most hilarious thing is when both Meghan and Harry, they are saying something in the documentary but they're talking about someone else, like someone they're criticizing, but they're actually describing themselves.
I think from their perspective, they had to believe that it was more about us and maybe the issues that we had. They saw what they wanted to see.
That is literally what you two are doing. A little sidebar, a little positive sidebar, because we're saying all this like negative stuff about Meghan. The redeeming quality for her, and it really redeemed a lot because I love animals, is her relationship with her dogs, who were clearly with her throughout the whole journey. You can see, oh, they're so cute. At some point when I saw enough of them and I saw her taking them everywhere, I was like, oh, maybe she is a nice person. I don't know. So what's the takeaway from all this? Like for Harry or anyone who is actually experiencing arrested development where they're stuck at a certain age because of unresolved mommy issues, unresolved daddy issues, they need to go to therapy. So hopefully Prince Harry will get the help that he needs. But to make it more relevant for us, the peasants, not the princes, basically if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, get out. And next time, make sure that you are able to discern and figure out what's good and what isn't good for you. And that's it, guys. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and I'll see you next year. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, please. And I'm going to leave it with one last word from Shefali.
True love, our true soul partners, will only be discovered after a process of discernment of self and other. But none of these valuable life lessons are being taught to our children in the Disney stories.
Is he kind? Is he kind?